There are very few people who have lived up to the obligation to others and to the world as much as our commencement speaker, Igor Vamos. Igor is an internationally acclaimed multimedia artist and activist. He graduated in the Reed College class of 1990 and received his Master of Fine Arts from UC San Diego. His thesis, in case you're wondering, was on that eternal question in Western civilization: what is the significance of bathroom graffiti in Portland's bars? For said project, I learned from him this morning that he actually put up removable wall platforms in a huge number of bars around Portland so that he could collect graffiti and then remove it for study. That's a very Reed-like project for those parents out there. Professor Vamos teaches at Rensselaer. He's won the Annenberg and the Guggenheim fellowships. He's famous for high visibility, high social impact, artistic events, performances. All of us have different favorite ones. My favorite happens to be the project known as the Barbie Liberation Organization. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this project, it involved the removal of a large volume of Barbie and G.I. Joe dolls from stores and switching their electronic voice boxes and then returning them to the shelves so that the next generation could receive a group of Barbies that said, "Vengeance is mine." And others could get a G.I. Joe that would say, "Let's go shopping." It gives me great pleasure to introduce our commencement speaker, member of the class of 1990, Igor Vamos.
Well, the first thing I have to say is congratulations, class of 2014. Woo! It's such a sad day. Bye. Okay, I didn't want to leave here when I graduated. I liked it so much. I loved it here. And so it is sad in a way to be going out into the world. College was fun, right? The last graduation I went to was at Reed in 1990. In those days, it was common for someone to graduate naked. That year, one of my friends did. His name was Michael, and today he's a rabbi. Things don't always turn out the way you expect. He was, by the way, taking off his clothes, or divesting, in support of divestment from South Africa, which at the time was still a burning issue. But now he's a rabbi, and they do say that we're all naked in the eyes of God, or at least some of us are naked in the eyes of each other. I'm not wearing anything under this gown. I'm hoping that later I can find a respectable job like Michael did. If graduating naked can lead to a career as a rabbi, then certainly giving a commencement address naked can lead to something great. Like maybe I can be a bishop in the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. That's a new aspiration of mine. But I'm going to keep the gown on for the next 15 minutes because I don't want it to distract from the seriousness of what I have to say. I'm very excited right now, and I'm very optimistic for your futures. But before I talk about that, I want to give a shout out to the parents and grandparents here today. Now, I realize that President Kroger already thanked the parents and grandparents, but I'm going to do it in a slightly more colloquial way. Well done, parents and grandparents. I had to have kids myself to realize how hard it is to raise humans. Your kids or grandkids may be graduating today, but they started out as useless, rude, little creatures who didn't care a whit for the ways of civilized men or women. Thank you, parents, for keeping these college graduates alive through those very tough years. It is not easy keeping a human alive, and you guys will not understand that till you do it yourself. Today's graduates, that's you, at an extremely young age, each and every one of you is seriously infantile. You were impossible, but look at you now. So please join me in giving the clap to your parents. Thank you, parents, but now the important part. Why did they bother to keep you alive? I mean, this education isn't cheap, right? They kept you alive because you are the future, and you have a special responsibility. In fact, never has it been so important in history to be the future as it is now for you. And I'm going to tell you why. Because you, the college graduates of today, are entering into a very different world than the one I graduated into in 1991. I'm not just talking about mullets falling out of favor. Your world is literally very different than mine. Upon graduation, your world includes the definitive knowledge that our climate is spinning out of control. A little over 20 years ago, I graduated from Reed. I loved it here. At what other school could an art major get a nuclear reactor operator's license? It was a rigorous education, both in class and out. And that makes sense, because in some ways it can be seen as 10,000 years in the making. This education, the rigor that can be found, represents the culmination of a series of educational philosophies that dates back to the dawn of civilization. Civilization, that precious, highly complex system that emerged in the 10,000 years since the last ice age, the geologic period we call the Holocene. The word Holocene is derived from the Greek words holos, meaning entire, and kainos, meaning recent. For the last 400 generations, we've been taking great advantage of the stable climate and great weather that has characterized this entirely recent period to build our civilization. And in fact, many scientists say that the only reason we have civilization at all is because we had a climate predictable enough to develop agriculture and eventually literature, science, and underwater basket weaving. When I graduated from here in the early 90s, and I did take the underwater basket weaving course as a phys ed requirement, it is, or at least it was, real. When I graduated, I was ultimately the beneficiary of 10,000 years of a stable climate. Unfortunately, I think of myself today as being among the last graduates of the Holocene era, or at least the last clueless graduates who are blissfully unaware of what lay just around the corner and could imagine rebellion as a kind of hobby rather than as a way of life. Fast forward one short generation. There's a new world for the era that we're in. Anthropocene is a combination of the Greek words anthropos, meaning human, and scene, meaning new. This new human-induced geologic period has several disturbing characteristics, the most frightening of which is how our species is affecting the Earth's climate. You are, I think, truly graduates of the Anthropocene, and that, I would argue, makes the whole project of your education an entirely different animal than that of mine only 23 years ago. So I ask you, what is the goal of a great college education in a world going to hell in a handbasket? In the last 40 years, the ocean has become 20% more acidic due to climate change. A majority of scientists who study the subject believe that the ocean's coral reefs will be dead by 2050, just about the time that your kids will be in college, should you choose to reproduce in the relatively near future. I did that. I had kids, and I love them, but I'm scared for their future. A few years ago, I went on vacation to a beautiful beach in Mexico. My oldest daughter was 5. Her name is Ruby. She could swim. She had a little mask. And she saw all kinds of underwater wildlife, including tropical fish and sea turtles, her favorite animal. She was blown away. I found myself loving the trip, but hating the reality. Sorry, kid. These fish, these turtles, they're the last ones. If scientific consensus is right, and I find that it often is, sorry to say, all these creatures you're looking at will be dead when you are an adult. Some scientists are now saying that by the time you're as old as your grandparents, there will be no fish left in the ocean. Sushi will not be the cause. It's ocean acidification brought on by climate change. But despite this incredibly scary news, don't worry, there will be an uplifting part coming. It's standard in these addresses. I do not intend to depart from that if you turn the lights on again. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, but despite all this incredibly scary news, a study of media coverage done by Media Matters showed that one family of tabloid celebrities, the Kardashians, got 40 times more media coverage in the last 2 years than ocean acidification. Right? The oceans are dying and we're looking at the Kardashians. This is insanity. We're not getting the story. The land isn't doing so well either. Since I was born, global warming has added 4% more moisture to the atmosphere, causing a dramatic increase in extreme storms, like Hurricane Irene that flooded where I'm from in the Northeast, and Sandy, which constituted the largest wind field ever measured. The Southeast drought of 2012 represented the driest conditions in 800 years. We've recently had in the Southwest the largest wildfires in recorded history. Climate change is affecting the global food supply. Crop yields of wheat are going down even as the human population continues to grow. And violence, starvation, and disease that come from the upheavals are here. By 2100, several studies have indicated that there will be 1 billion climate refugees on this planet. To say this is very bad only diminishes the gravity of this situation. Graduates of 2012, you truly have to deal with the blowback from the Anthropocene era, the era in which humans leave 10,000 years of climatic stability. With changes like this afoot, what is a graduate to do? What's the next step in life? When I was graduating, a mantra that was often repeated in contexts like this was, do what you love. Reed's most famous dropout, Steve Jobs, promoted that idea religiously. In 2005, he gave the commencement speech at Stanford University. And he said the most important thing that graduates could do was to do what you love. Sorry, Steve, but that idea belongs to the late Holocene. Doing what you love may never have been politically okay in the first place, but it's definitely not right for now, when the Anthropocene period is beginning to destroy everything that makes love possible. Now, what's wrong with do what you love? I mean, I like the sound of it. But do what you love reads as an insult to the vast majority of people globally who have to work shit jobs to get by. It implies privilege. But on a deeper level, the idea that we should do what we love ultimately places self at the center of the universe. But that's over. The era of me must transform into an era of we. Community has to become the outcome of innovation, because we will need community to survive and to thrive. Do what you love is no longer appropriate. When you graduate into this new era, I say, find your best skills and do what you must. I say do what you must because the planet is in your hands. And if we're going to save it, we need to do everything that we can. We need to very quickly change our culture and rewire our economy. This is a revolution. You are a part of it. No sane person loves a revolution if they already live in relative comfort. We may love the idea of it, the principle of it, but the process is usually much more tedious, less glamorous. But today I'm saying screw that comfort. It's over. The house is on fire. We need to act. Do what you must. If we're going to have any love left, we must take back the future of this planet from those that conspire to ruin it. But some good news. There are countless ways to act. A simple step, if you have some money, is to get out of fossil fuels. A lot of people here know how to ride a bike. But if you have a lot more money, you can also divest. Have you read Bill McKibben's Do the Math? In that piece, he observed that right now, the known reserves of the fossil fuel companies constitute more than 5 times the amount that is safe for our planet to burn. If they're allowed to dig it up and to burn it, it is game over for a livable world. But the market, the pyramid scheme that is our civilization's primary engine, is pegged to the value of those reserves. If we stop digging it up and burning it, we face an economic wall. With hard math like that, the oil companies and their lobbyists are compelled to convince everyone to keep on going. Status quo, like so many lemmings over the cliff. And an industry of naysayers is generated, people whose job it is to make us think that we cannot change this system, or that it's not worth it, whatever that means, or that it's futile, or that it will be too expensive. Bullshit! Those same arguments were used over a century ago to validate slavery in the United States. The economy would collapse without it, people said. I'm pretty sure that we made the right choice when we outlawed slavery. Of course, it's worth mentioning that outlawing slavery in the USA did not end the practice. In fact, there are more slaves in the world today than ever in history. And strangely, despite the great value this market machine extracts for us, and despite the dirt cheap, dirty energy the fossil fuels have delivered us for the last 100 years, we now live with more disparity than ever in history. We can clearly see failure everywhere in this oil economy. Cheap energy from fossil fuels has not brought us an era of equity and justice. So why lament its passing? Let's embrace this new reality. The good news for you, class of 2014, is that you have the opportunity to make that new reality. The story is not over. We can change this. This morning, I had breakfast with President Kroger, and over a scone and a cup of coffee, I was very pleased to learn that the Board of Trustees of Reed College has just now decided to divest the school's $500 million endowment from fossil fuels. Woo! This is indeed fantastic news. Reed joins 11 other universities who have made this commitment to the planet and to your future, and that includes Stanford, the place where Steve Jobs actually made the announcement about doing what you love. But I'm glad that Reed is doing what it must. And I'm very excited to break this news to the graduating class of 2014, since the world is in your hands. And if you want to break the news to the world, you can use the hashtag #DivestReed. I'm also excited that the tuition-paying parents, who will no doubt be very pleased that your investment in your child's education is not in fact ruining the chance that their grandchildren will have a livable future on Earth. But this is even more exciting. Stanford said they're getting out of coal. Reed is getting out of coal and heavy oil. But what they're doing with the money is what's most interesting. They're pulling the money from those industries and they're reinvesting it in community-owned renewable energy projects. This is a complete program of environmental and social justice while addressing climate change. It literally is putting power back in the hands of the people. It's incredibly inspiring. And this is also a message of opportunity for you, graduates of 2014. As we rewire civilization to run on other kinds of fuels, there is a revolutionary chance to redistribute power, literally. When we pay for our energy that we use every day, we need to stop handing money over to the Koch brothers for their tar sands and their coal mines. And we need to start giving it to decentralized, community-owned renewable energy initiatives, preferably ones in your own community. Wouldn't you rather pay yourself for your energy than pay a multinational corporation that can use that money to corrupt your democracy? Class of 2014, look at the massive opportunity to build a better world. Do what you must. You are going to be responsible for nothing short of rewiring our civilization, turning away from fossil fuels, relocalizing, rebuilding, building community. This is a revolution. It's in your hands. This is a revolution to denormalize the status quo, to turn the swords of fossil fuels into the plowshares of renewable energy. Martin Luther King repeatedly said that human salvation was in the hands of the creatively maladjusted. He said that over and over again. As I look around the crowd, I'm pretty sure it was you who he was talking about. But what did he mean? Here's more context. He said, I never intend to adjust myself to segregation and discrimination. I never intend to adjust myself to economic conditions that will take necessities from the many to give luxuries to the few and leave millions of people perishing on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of prosperity. And I call upon you to be maladjusted to these things until the good society is realized. Today, I'm sure Dr. King would call upon you to be maladjusted to the idea that we cannot address climate change, to be maladjusted to the idea that we cannot make a more equitable world, to be maladjusted to the status quo. There's no shortage of opportunity in the transition ahead. If you're thinking about how to get a job after college, don't worry. The revolution is hiring. In the great change ahead, you are needed. There's an unlimited potential for creativity, invention, innovation. There's an unlimited amount of organizing to do, and there's a lot of heavy lifting. As we create a new energy infrastructure, as we create new local economies, new ways to govern ourselves, there is opportunity. Innovation is not just about making shiny new stuff. It's about figuring out new political architecture. You are the ones who can design systems that liberate rather than enslave, that privilege freedom over oppression. When I graduated, my class had to make our way in the world. But you are poised to do nothing less than remake the world itself. Don't let the future happen to you. Make it.